I have a confession to make. I lied to you guys. I said way back in December, I know it seems like an age away, but it was only a couple of months, that this was going to be the year of man. I was going to take Wilder Corpse Hunters to every single event, and I was going to smash it, and I'm going to win everything. I lied, apparently. So I took Hunters of Huanchi this time, and we went to Warhammer World. And unfortunately, I came third place and managed to win this trophy. So I'm extremely sorry. My bad. I will try better next time. But yeah, anyway, we went to Warhammer World last weekend, and there was a really big event that happened. They played 5 games of Warcry, which was really, really cool. We had 44 participants, which again makes the Warhammer World events up there with some of the biggest events that's happening basically on the planet for Warcry, which is awesome. We saw a really diverse field. It was some very interesting lists that came up. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at those lists. We're going to be talking about the event. We're going to be talking about everything that happened. And when I say I've got a couple of guests on today. First up, I've got my wise man up on the mountain. I've got Charles here, if you want to say hello.
Hello there.
Hello. And secondly, I have the only person who managed to defeat me back at Warhammer Fest, and I have the winner of Warhammer World's November event that took place, Dimitrios. He goes by the name Finalists on the Discord. If you want to say hello also.
Evening.
Hello. And yes, we are going to look at that. But before we get in there, if you want to throw some support my way and you want to see more videos like this, you can join me here on YouTube. You can join me on Patreon, where you can check out behind the scenes stuff on the videos that I make. You can see exclusive content, stuff that's coming out real soon, and you can have a say in the kind of content that I put out in the future. Alternatively, if none of that is for you, just please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, helps me get around that algorithm, and just helps us grow in general. But yeah, that's it for the preamble. Let's get straight into the event. So, as I mentioned, we played 5 games. We've got the 5 missions here. We got Treasure Hunters, No Quarter, Brutal Conquest, which famously came from the White Dwarf missions that they released recently. We've got Reaper, and we have Hidden Vault. Weirdly and kind of uniquely for this event specifically, Games Workshop released the missions before the actual event started, which is something that essentially never happens at Warhammer World events. It's always you go in there blind, you go in, you basically find out what the missions are on the day. So this allowed people to kind of tailor their lists somewhat. I don't know about you guys, but there was a lot of talk and a lot of chatter going on about this effectively just being a smash pack, where you take the biggest, chunkiest thing and then you kind of beat down your opponent and kind of win that way. I guess that might be true of something like Brutal Conquest. It's probably true on Reaper, but there are ways to kind of get around that. But the other ones are almost, but not really, objective style missions.
It's similar to what we played in November with an extra round. So that did have a bit of a 50-50 between fighting elite missions and treasure missions. And similar here, while they do play to the strengths of fighting warbands, you can also just play the objectives and play keep away on some of them. And sure. Reaper is one where all you have to do is get one, like a kill. As long as you get a kill and your opponent doesn't get any, you can win by minimal fighting.
Yeah, Reaper I always find is less about killing as much of your opponent as possible and more about doing enough damage. Doing enough damage to each of your opponent's pieces so that on the next turn you have the ability to score the points.
I agree. I had Iron Jaws up against the wonderful Warboss Kurgan, and I managed to get a win with Ephilim, and which was a surprise first to me. And I was gonna say about Brutal Conquest as well. The team that I took was by no means a smashy team whatsoever, and I have in practice games on Brutal Conquest done 40 points with it. So I think it's a lot about playing the condition over just going in and smashing. I mean, a well-built team that hits on 3s and does a ton of damage will do quite well, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. Is that the the
Yes,
right
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking about these, right? Treasure Hunters is 5 pieces of treasure that you've got to pick up, so you kind of need a slightly bigger warband for that. No quarter, a big old smash team cannot win no quarter against something like a swarmy team that can dance around, because you need to force all of your opponent's models out of the table quarters.
And if you lose 3 if you're only a 6-man warband and you lose 3 models,
you
the
physically
opponent will
can't
probably
win.
just win.
Yeah, exactly. Similarly with Brutal Conquest, yes, you want someone who can kill a lot of things and get a lot of points for Brutal Conquest, but anyone else who does any kind of killing in Brutal Conquest that isn't your great champion is basically gaining no points. So you almost don't want to kill things on Brutal Conquest, except in very certain situations. I think Reaper, yes, you want to kill as much stuff as possible and you want to kill more things. But like I said, you can manage that. And the Hidden Vault, there's a lot of kind of dancing around and waiting on Hidden Vault to see where the actual objective is going to be. And something like a really big swarmy warband can kind of just pile on to the last objective, usually in the middle of the battlefield.
I have a question for you good selves. Have you ever been in a Hidden Vault that hasn't been in the middle? The last objective hasn't been in the middle?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Because I if you're playing a warband with extreme speed, like the kinds of warbands that I like playing, I get rid of the middle objective specifically to put one or more of my opponent's deployment groups out of place.
Gotcha. Okay,
and then you can kind of leap around and do all sorts of things. Like, it is possible, but if you're playing a more straightforward game of Warcry, like, oh, here's my 2 kind of medium-ish warbands kind of smashing into each other, then yeah, it probably always ends in the middle. I guess, I mean, we'll talk about the list that you brought a little bit later, Dimitrios, but with your kind of list, with all the teleporting shenanigans and the stuff that it can do, I think there is play there to remove the center objective.
Oh yeah, I was lucky enough in my case to get a map where I could clear. I was playing Horns of Hashut and Ephilim with plus strength, which was it was one of the first things that you said when you saw my list, and you said you probably put a bit of strength in there. And
yeah, on the range attacks, right? Make those wizard bolts hit.
Absolute artillery piece, and especially on something like Horns where they're all toughness 4.
Sure.
Being able to, like, even rampage and just start putting bolts through. I basically cleared the map before the 4th round, in which case,
yes, of course, and
it's a little easier.
And again, so I get links to, if you have speed and teleporting tricks, again on Hidden Vault, you have very strong artillery pieces and range pieces. That also gives you play to be able to get rid of the middle objective, because you'll be able to affect people on those far objectives without you necessarily being there yourself. Which again, I think is interesting. A lot of people kind of shit on Hidden Vault for being kind of bad, but there's play in there depending on how you like to build. I've got the participant list for you. There were 44 players. One thing you'll see that's very interesting in this is that we normally have a really large Soulblight Gravelords contingent in the UK, but that's completely dropped off. There was only one Soulblight Gravelords player that came. He's very good. He won the event in November. I've never managed to beat him myself. And I think, Charles, you got a kicking by him. Was it last time?
No, I don't think it was last time. It was a previous one, I think.
One of the Rumble events.
One of the Rumble events. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So he's real good, and he's kind of sticking in there. Yeah, because Soulblight Gravelords is kind of his faction, and that's what he likes to play.
Michael was my only loss in Warhammer Fest. So yeah, absolutely. But he is a sweetheart. He's really nice.
No, he is. Well, I want to point out, Loss of Gorges. They are one of the newer warbands, and they seem to have really made. They made a splash here. They just seem to resonate with people. So it's like Gorges, Vulcan Flame Seekers, which are new as well. Interestingly, Dark Oath Savages had a good showing. The new Cities of Sigma also came in. So I think there's a very, if you look at it, you don't see any one warband with something like 20% or 30% of the participation, or any faction. So for example, Destruction Soup, you can add it up and there just aren't all that many. There's like a couple of Iron Jaws, a Cruel Boys, and like a couple of others, but together they don't make up a really big part of the field. And I think that's very encouraging. I'm always happy to see very wide-ranging fields in Warcry, because it means that from a player perspective, you get to go to an event and you get to play 4 or 5, in this case, completely different warbands, and just get a better experience overall, I think.
Yeah, this is a difference from like Kill Team, really, where you see less factions overall in Kill Team and more of like, oh well, there was 3 Space Marines, there was 4 Orcs, there was 4 Harlequins. You do get a lot more variation in Warcry, just because either people play the faction they want to play or they own the models and they play those factions, and it is just a little bit better with a bit more diversity.
Yes.
I think also it's the fact that it is a Sigmar, right? That is quite recent, has new models that we all know are not easy to paint.
No.
They're not, you can't get them looking good fast by any means of the imagination. But there's been plenty of like analysis on them, because I do think that they're one of the better designed factions for having an identity and having like a really clear thematic, this is what we want to do with this. And the fact that there's so many people that played them, I think is testament to that. And the same with the Flame Seekers, because even though they're a bit simpler in concept than the Cities of Sigmar, they still have like a few really good abilities that are also very thematic and very like true to the core design. So it's not surprising. I do think Gorger is mostly like, this is a fast thing that hits hard and I like it, which is also would be the appeal to me as well. But I think we're going to see that fall over time, because I genuinely do think that the 3 toughness really hurts them.
Yes.
Yeah. It also depends on the kind of mission pack that you're playing, right? If you look at the missions themselves and you think, oh, I'm gonna need to just kill stuff, Gorges are.
It's actually it's kind of less of that, really. And overall, it's the matchups you end up getting. Like, I've been, I say, lucky and unlucky with Gorges, where I've faced a lot of different people who have strength 4, strength 5 guys with like 3-5 damage, 4-2-4 damage, like really good damage profiles. And that toughness 3 really hurts you. And sometimes their toughness 5, and your Gorges can't hurt them back. And it very much depends on the field. Like, we've had a very good mixed field, but there is a lot more people out there who can deal with Gorges a lot easier than Gorges can deal with them sometimes.
Yeah, and I think if something is going to be able to do multiple damage to a Gorger, like 3 or 4 points of damage out of one attack, not attack action, just
it's gonna murder a Gorger in a couple of rounds.
It's gonna win you on. My feeling on this is that it's gonna win you on 3s anyway, even if you were toughness 4. So I don't see that as much of a downside. But in something like this, where people are bringing those really big fighters, they might struggle.
I think I didn't really fight any squishy warbands this event.
Not that there were that many of them.
The average warbands have got tankier and tankier, because they are the better your better fighters generally are.
Sure.
You're slightly tankier, slightly more damaging fighters.
So linked to the participants, I've got the average tournament points here. So let me move to the side a little bit. Oh, there we go. So the idea is that you need 60 points minimum to go 4-1. So 4 minor wins and 1 major loss. There are a couple of other routes to 60 points. You could get 3 major wins and 2 major losses. That would also get you 60 points. But in general, I think that 60 is a pretty good benchmark for the event to see how different factions were doing. There are a couple of really standouts here. I mean, well, there's the Unmade. We're going to see it. Unmade came second, and there was only 1 Unmade player. So that's still a really high amount of tournament points, which is real good. Of course, Hunters of One Sheet, there was only 1 guy, because I'm the only person seemingly on the planet who plays them at this rate. I did real well. But look at it. Those 3 Cities of Sigmar players, they averaged like 68 points, which is very respectable considering it's a newer warband. And again, you've got that kind of painting and modeling element to them where it might stop people from being able to build them and getting as many games in. Demons of Nurgle had a very small showing, but again, they did pretty well. Crawl Boys did well. What else we got? Soulblight Gravelords and Sylvaneth, they all did pretty good. Even Corvus Cabal, you wouldn't think it. I'm reading some reviews of warbands. Corvus Cabal seems to be real bad, but whatever this guy did, we're going to take a look at the list in a bit. He seems to do all right. But yeah, I like the fact that there are multiple different warbands who are able to effectively top an event, let's say. Any one of these warbands that got these 60 points if a dice roll went one way or another, they'd basically be able to come top 3 easy, because that's just the way it is. But yeah, I like the fact that we have that very wide field, and it kind of goes to what you were saying, Charles, about Kill Team, where you tend to see a much tighter spread of kill teams and how they're doing in an event.
You can see probably about 50% of the lists are on that kind of viable mark between 50 and 70.
Mm.
And there's a few outliers who did particularly bad, but that's just could have been terrible matchup choices.
Yeah, or new players or whatever. There's 100 different reasons why you can do poorly in a tournament.
But the majority of them are in that good band of anyone could win on a couple of dice rolls.
First of all, I was really happy to see Sylvanus do so well. I have been slowly collecting and will at some point take a crack at them. But I was really happy to see them do so well because there were multiple players. It's the same with the Corvus Cabal. There's 2 players, so they both did really well. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, like the Charlie doing so well with the Unmade genuinely was a highlight for me. I was really happy for him. We met through the Discord and kind of met in person the first time in the last tournament, and it was really nice to just kind of be there for his success, given how some of the rest of us did.
Here's the thing, right? There are these warbands that people say are bad, when in reality it's just that they might not be doing things in a straightforward way. So Unmade is all nets effectively, and they pay through the nose for that ability, right? But if you have this kind of field where people are expecting to bring big chunky guys, suddenly taking Unmade where everyone's a net on a double, and again, we're going to look at the list.
I played against
a good idea.
I played against him, and it was the Grand Champion one.
Yes, where models die if they're within 4 inches of the table edge.
Yes, yeah, I got messed up by that, but yeah, he kept my Grand Champion, which was my clawback, netted for 2 turns.
There we go.
Just by having a double.
Yeah.
And basically prevented me from scoring anything almost.
Yes. And the Unmade net is also at range, right? The range is equal to the value of the double. So having a proper range net is super useful. One more thing here. I've got average kill points. So this doesn't really paint an amazing picture of average kill points. But the one thing I did want to mention is the Unmade player. He kind of proves that you can bring a more control-orientated, not necessarily get a lot of kill points during your game, so not smashing your opponents down, but again, managing to top an event. So that's something from a Hunters of Guanchi player who basically plays kind of like that is very encouraging for me. So I'm super happy again at him doing what he did. So this is the top 8 for anyone who wants to see it. You can see how they went. So Charlie with the Unmade, 1440 kill points, so the lowest in the top 8, but otherwise managed to go 2 majors, 2 minors, and a draw, which is very good for 83 points. We had tournament quests going on as well, but you can see that the pack at the top is actually super tight. So 2nd and 3rd place, 83 and 82 points total score. 4th and 5th place, 78, 76, 73, 72. So it's very tight there at the top, which kind of goes back to what I was saying, where any of effectively the top 19-ish players who got more than 60 points, if it went one way or the other and you turned a minor into a major, it could have just swung hugely where they are on these standings. We're going to take a look at the lists now, and we're going to see how that went. So, first place, our friend over from France, Le Sabri. He was bringing Dark Oath. We've got it here. Slaughter Priest with Blood-Bathed Axe. Slaughterborn with Great Axe, +4 wounds. Fulmroid Crusher, +1 attack. Godspeaker, and 3 Glory Seekers. 1 with Spear, 2 with Shields. I'm going to preface this entire thing by saying you're going to see a lot of Fulmroid Crushers. It seems like every Chaos Warband brought one, and I understand why. They're amazing. They have no wasted points on their stat line. They do exactly what you need them to do. And with Divine Blessings, you can give them that +1 attack to make them 4-6-4-8 is what they become, which is kind of crazy.
For the Fulmroid specifically, I think the big thing is the fact that he has both Strength 6 and Toughness 6. So
and
a good amount of wounds. Yeah. So like there's the only thing holding him back is the attacks, and you can fix that. So You know, he's basically incredible all around, can get into places. I don't think he's a beast, so he can go through doors and all of that. So you
No,
don't even
he's
have
not.
that.
He knows how to use doors.
He knows how to use doors. So yeah, no, absolutely solid piece that doesn't cost too much. So yeah, you can use it to just prop up just about anything.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that, right? If you're bringing a Chaos Warband and you're interested in playing, if you're interested in playing competitively at least, and you're playing Chaos, bring a Fomoroid. It'll do exactly what you need to do. Second place, Charlie with the Unmade. Here it is. So Blissful 1 with +1 Strength. This is so that he becomes Strength 5 instead of Strength 4. So suddenly that 2/5 damage profile is wounded more regularly. He's got the True Blood out of Splintered Fang, again with the best net in the game, so it's just on a double and you net a guy. You don't need to roll a dice, don't need to do anything else. Frostbite Crusher,
very strong.
Yeah, 3 Awakened ones with flails. So they got the 3-inch range, which kind of ties into the more control-y side of this warband. With 3-inch range and their double that is, and because they are unmade, they're able to sit at that range, net opponents, and hit them from outside of their threat range, normally 1 or 2 inches. So that's why the flails are there. And then there's an Awakened one with bladed polearm. It's a really cool list, really. After that of this event, I've been seriously looking at Unmade, thinking, okay, there might actually be something to this. I'd be tempted to bring 2 True Bloods just because it'd be funny. Slightly overkill, but, you know, being able to lock down 2 big targets per turn might be fun. I could definitely see why it well.
You generally only need that one guaranteed lockdown. Because the thing is, with everyone having a net, you can kind of get away with the 3-up net on other people.
Sure. Oh, sorry, the Blissful one is 2/6 damage, so even better, 5/4/2/6. So his one went to 5/5/2/6. I was doing weird and wonderful things, and we'll talk about it in a second. I was doing weird and wonderful things with Calthir Zandaya and +1 base damage. So making a Blissful one +1 base damage to be 5/4/3/6 might also be really strong. Like just end up blitzing through things. I think there's something to them, especially in a pack like this where people expect to bring big things, really big smashy things. I think they're cool.
The Blissful one, he's got Rampage on a triple as well.
Yeah.
And with that moving 8, if you can go around just clearing out chaff or clearing out your opponent's weaker pieces, that you can comfortably do even at a 5/4/2/6, you have the movement to go around and do that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, good on you, Charlie. I want to see more of this because I like it. I like it a lot. And right, for third place, this guy, he did a thing. There's this thing that he did a thing with. Them hunters, they keep pulling me back in, the Hunters of Wanchi. So why am I playing this and not Wildercorp? The reason I'm playing this and not Wildercorp is because of Haskell Hexbane and Quiet Pock. Basically, I was playing a very similar list of Wildercorp Hunters, but my problem with Wildercorp was that they're slow. They're only movement 4, despite having the same abilities, the same reaction as the Skinks do. So I went back to Hunters because I really like the movement 6. I think it's awesome. I think they're double to just climb anything and everything for free is also super good. I think the utility abilities, so Hurl Bolus and Bellow of a Carnosaur are really good. So that's kind of why I went back to Hunters of Wanchi for this. Effectively, it's just Calthir Zandaya +1 base damage, so she becomes a 5/4/3/4, which is real consistent. It's super nice having a 3/4 damage profile because suddenly you're not going, okay, well, I'm going to roll a bunch of hits and maybe I'll only do 6 damage with my 3 hits. That 6 damage is now 9 damage. Even more if you throw +1 attack onto her. So that's really good. Then we got Haskell Hexbane, Hexbane's Hunters. He's bringing Pock with him. Pock is +1 strength. So he becomes a 2/5/3/6, which gives a really strong ranged attack. Of course, 15-inch range. That ranged attack can be boosted by Calthir Zandaya for it to attack again. So Pock was kind of doing God's work, essentially, and kind of carrying, in terms of the damage portion of my warband, between Calthir and Pock, they were really doing it. Then we got the Skink Alpha with Moonstone Club because it gets Hurl Bolus. 5 Wanchi's Claw because you never leave without Wanchi's Claw. One thing I want to say about Hexbane is I thought during the event I would always just dump all my triples into Calthir and just be happy with extra attacks or extra movement. The movement's really useful actually on Wanchi's Claws because an extra move on them is an extra 6 inches, so they can basically get anywhere on the battlefield. But anyway, Hexbane. There were 2 points in this tournament where I dumped my triples into Hexbane. One was against an Askagan Exemplar, where he went up to crit 9, and he one-shot the Exemplar from the battlefield, which is really good. And one where he went up against, I think it was a Troll. He went up to crit 10. And suddenly, when you're swinging with 8 attacks, 2 attack actions at crit 10, something's going to stick, and it's going to do major damage. So Haskell is probably my MVP, apart from Pock, just by giving me the ability to have that secondary damage dealer that just goes, okay, if I really need to, I'll throw dice at him, and he will suddenly do amazingly. I've talked about this list a lot. I've actually got a video coming out very soon about an updated how to play Hunters of One-Chi, so I'm going to talk about it all in that video, but it's real strong. If there were any other events happening, I would probably bring this list. I think it's probably one of the better lists that I've managed to write. And it just shows that it did really well in a supposed Smash pack, and it's still got the numbers in there to do objectives and treasure really well. So I'm super happy with it. I lost to the player who came in 4th, and effectively what won it for him was a first turn bonus movement Achillean King that got into combat with 2 of my skinks basically instantly and killed them. So I just lost a ton of activation advantage. And on the King, with that movement 10, it can just get anywhere and it can kill things before it can kill it. So anything that's really, really fast, it kind of struggles with. But these kinds of mid-rangey, maybe a bit swarmy warbands, it's super good against. So I'm happy with it.
Your opponent's only really ever going to have one super fast fighter like that.
Yes, that's true.
You've got so much movement, you can then just spread out and prevent that happening after it happens once.
After it happens.
So that goes back to what we're always like kind of mention on the discussions that we have on the server, which is there's one kind of play style which is you go in and you start killing, and it's mostly like Iron Jaws and Destruction Soup.
Yes, very prevalent in the States.
Exactly. So what we're seeing here is second and third being very movement based, very movement kind of focused warbands. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing, like the True Bloods not being in more warbands when they have the most reliable net is wild, because I have gone to a tournament, I've rolled a 1 on that, and it doesn't feel great. And it's great when you have a True Blood and you can go, no, absolutely not, because consistency is the name of the game, especially when you don't know what warband you're going to have, you don't know what where you're going to end up on the map and what the scenario is going to be. So the more of these kind of moving parts you can kind of have certainty on, you can build on that a lot better and have like a very consistent game plan for going into a match.
I think for Chaos, a lot of people are kind of obsessed with the Formeroid Crusher Vanguard combo as their allies, but doing this with a Formeroid and a True Blood, I think, is just as valid. Right, so moving on, we're going to go into the top 8. We have William Zantour. He is my only loss for the event, but I managed to beat him out by getting a lot of tournament points. And this is what did it. A Killing King with Bladed Polearm with +1 base damage, so it becomes a 3/5. I think it is. He was playing Cities of Sigmar, so he's got the Fusel Major, he's got 3 Steel Helms, he's got the War Surgeon. The War Surgeon itself didn't do all that much, but the Steel Helm Warhulk combo did great with the Cities of Sigmar reaction. Yeah, so it'll basically, if a Steel Helm or the Surgeon is near the Warhulk, it's going to be effectively countering, but getting +1 toughness and be doing 2 damage back for every single miss. And that's kind of almost what scuppered me here, because when the Steel Helms go up to toughness 5 or to even toughness 6, suddenly you're missing a lot at range, and their super counter is doing a lot of damage back to you. I did a very interesting video on this, so I'm going to put the link of that down in the description below, where we basically go through the entire build for Cities of Sigmar, how that works, and how all the moving pieces work. But anyway, so he had the Killing King, Fusel Major, Eric Questor with Grand Hammer and +1 move to give it movement 5, which is very nice. The Eric Questor has a double that gives his buddy a free move, so that's how the Killing King managed to zip across the battlefield on turn 1 and basically murder me. 3 Steel Helms and 1 Surgeon.
I mean, it's surprising. It's low amount of bodies, and the War Surgeon can be taken out quite easily. But you're not moving the Warhawk, not without significant effort. The Achillean King will not sit there and die. He will probably either kill you or get out relatively comfortably. Errant Questor, I have a soft spot. And the +1 move is great because the Questor will go around and absolutely murder all of your chaff with the 3/6/3/4. Not even think about it twice. And I think it's and the double as well with the force of a thunderbolt. If they finish a move action within an inch of 2 or more fighters, they can do a bonus attack. And then if you kill them, the Achillean King gets a little bonus, so he gets to move or attack. So it's a good list. It's a good solid list. Absolutely.
I think the Questor Achillean King combo pulls a lot of weight in this, because if you can one-shot a thing on turn 1 from across the board, that is kind of half your game basically done.
Yeah, I mean it's a budget Calphia at 165, is it?
165,
yeah. So 165 to be able to just give a bonus move if you are running something like the Achillean King that has a move 10, and that suddenly for a double is great value.
Yeah. And if you wanted something a bit cheaper than the King, you could bring something like Neve Black Talon. She'd be super good with this. There are a lot of builds. I think that Questor King combo or the Questor fast hard hitter combo, I think that's something to watch out for. We're going to see that a lot going forward. Talking about Calphia, Tom here, we've got Calphia, Hexbane. So this is a themed warband. He wanted to build basically Hexbane's Hunters and run that as a warband in itself. So we got Hexbane, Bridget, Pock with +1 strength because we want that. Amos, Rat Spike, which is one of the dogs, and then he's brought in Calphia Zandire with +1 strength this time, again to give additional shooting actions to Pock and additional shooting actions to Haskell, maybe movement to Bridget, that kind of thing. And then a Knight Arcanum with +1 strength. The Knight Arcanum,
it's the same profile. It's 2/4/3/6.
Overall, this is a lot of very consistent damage. When you've got a whole bunch of strength 5/3/6 shooting profiles along with Calphia to make them shoot more, I can see how this did well. Easy.
Yeah, just having the ability to just load that damage on somebody while remaining safe in a lot of these missions is really good, and then you can move up if you have to move on to an objective or move on to a treasure with the extra actions from Calphia.
Yeah, it is a bit small as a warband at 7 models, so if something does manage to get in there quickly, it will kind of wreck face.
From most of the lists that were in the top, the top 19, the average is 7 to 8 models. There's a couple of 9s. I think there's 110, but the average is about 7 or 8 models now. People are going towards slightly more like semi-elite teams where you're packing a lot of damage into a few models and then having a couple of models that will just fill out your activation.
Yeah, and I think that's really, again, a product of what people thought by looking at the missions and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to need, so this is how I'm going to play. But it's encouraging also to see that there were some people who had really good experiences with kind of the opposite end of the spectrum.
Looking at Ratspike and Bridget, playing a 6-person warband sucks, right?
Yes.
Especially if you're playing into something like Hunters of Huanchi or just something that has
a lot of guys.
Bodies.
Well, even like eight bodies is enough to
throw you off. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you can't get to them and kill them quickly and get the advantage again, then it's a problem. What we can see, I think, on this top 6 is that these are warbands with lower numbers with bodies where you can't really be caught out. You put Ratspike in the wrong place and you're a 6-person warband. So I think a lot of it has to do with pilot skill in keeping your pieces safe while also getting them where they need to be.
Yes, that's true.
Which leads us into Sam's warband very well, because Tree of Revenants die super easy.
They do, but you know what? Don't die. Turn off Hunters.
Yes.
True.
Yeah, but yes, Tree Revenants, Charles, you'd know this. Are they the teleporty ones, or are they the?
They are the teleport ones. Yeah.
Teleport ones, yeah. So they get to teleport around and go and get pieces of treasure. Scathael, if I remember, he was just a more efficient version of...
Yeah, he's basically roughly the same points as buying a Tree Revenant, and he's just slightly better. Same thing with the Archer. She's on par with a Tree Revenant, slightly more expensive, but gives you a ranged attack.
Yes. But the real meat of the warband is those two Colonel Hunters with Greatsword and 1 Huntmaster.
Yeah.
they will kill you if they want to.
The thing, I fought against this list, and I got so unlucky that 'cause it was on Reaver, and I ran into Reaper. Sorry, I ran into 2 Tree Revenants and did 9 damage to each of them, and then they just ran away from me the next turn. And then the Kernoths came in, and they hurt. They really hurt.
The thing is, they are toughness 4.
Yes.
So something that hits hard, especially like a Knight Arcanum with +1 strength or Quiet Pock, will tear chunks if you're not careful. But they do move 4, which means that they can close the gap quite comfortably.
Well, that's what the Tree Revenants are for, right? If on turn 1 you can teleport a bunch of Tree Revenants, walk into combat with Pock or the Arcanum or whatever, it slows them down for just long enough for those Kernoth Hunters to get there. I mean, they got 28 wounds at the end of the day, the basic Kernoth Hunters. So it's not like they'll die in 1 round of shooting. It'll take a couple of rounds to kill them.
Survive. And the great thing with the Tree Revenants is if they pick up a treasure and then you charge them, they can just teleport away. They don't care.
Overall, I'm very happy to see Sylvaneth up here, specifically because on paper, they look like a faction that have everything they need. So they got nets, they got teleports, they got some punchy pieces in the Kernoth Hunters, they got some decent range stuff, they got speed. Like they have a lot of things, but I don't think anyone has really managed to put all of that together in a really successful warband. And it's really encouraging that Sam managed to do it, and the second person who we're going to see their list, they managed to do it also.
It's not surprising as well. I think it was Sam that was the Questor Soulsworn 1 box from the last tournament.
Came second, right?
Yes. Yeah. An absolutely terrifying amount of no self-control, but just the relaxation, just playing absolutely calm and chill while I was freaking out on the other side. But absolutely no wasted movements. Which
His positioning is completely on point, right? If you can win an event with Questor Soulsworn and your 6 guys, having command of a much bigger warband is like saying, oh, I could do anything now. And the last 2 for the top 8, he did it, Corvus Cabal. Yes. The best warband. We got the Shadow Piercer, Fulmoroid in there, Spire Stalker, Cabalist with Familiar, 2 with Spear, 1 Shrike Talon. This is basically 1 box Corvus Cabal with a Fulmoroid. It did real good. I don't know how much of that is down to the Fulmoroid Crusher, but because here's the thing about Corvus Cabal. Their gimmick, which is getting up onto pieces of terrain, jumping off it, and then doing all the additional things, is really difficult. But I think a combination of the kinds of terrain that we see up at Warhammer World, so there's a lot of Gnarlwood terrain with the bridges and with the Gnarloaks. There's a lot of things like platforms. There's a lot of verticality to the terrain. And that really helps Corvus Cabal to be able to do what it is they want to do. So, yeah, I think a chunk of it would probably be down to the Fulmoroid, but just being able to do this with Corvus Cabal as your base, Edward is basically a fantastic player for being able to do that. Again, with positioning, again, with not wasting your moves and making sure your action economy is on point. Additionally,
traversal is really good, exactly because those boards are so dense. Getting through or moving is so much easier.
That allows them to ignore 3 inches of height or something?
So they've got double for don't count vertical distance with no limitation, unlike the Cypher Lords.
Nice.
Poor Cypher Lords.
Poor Cypher Lords.
And then they have a triple where it's a bonus move action, and if they are 3 inches or more vertically lower, they make a bonus attack. So that's basically Rampage on a triple with a few extra steps.
Yes.
So having those as options and a pretty decent movement profile, especially in the Shrike Talon with the movement 8, you can traverse really well, really easily. Yeah. One of the matches that I had, the not being able to climb easily was one of the things that kept my squishier body safe. The terrain can really mess up with your performance in a scenario, and they don't have to worry about that.
I got 2 boxes of unbuilt Corvus Cabal, so maybe it might be time to take a look at those.
I've got them painted, so very exciting.
And next up we have Mark Callingham. He came 8th. He was playing Gits. He's got the Loom Boss on Giant Cave Squig, very much glass cannon, but cannon nonetheless. When it hits you, you really feel it. Super quick. Thunder Fist, a Tyrant. He's got the Brugit and 2 Stabbers with nets. this is probably as close to Destruction Soup as we're going to get, but he's opted for just going for big, smashy things, as opposed to going for, oh, here's my brute boss that's going to do you mess in. Between the Thunderfist, a Tyrant, and a Loom boss, boosted with the Brugit, I don't think there's anything in the game that they can't kill.
Unless you roll horrifically. It's just like, roll up, roll some dice, and 3+ just murder things.
The Thunderfist and the Tyrant have the Ogre bonus move, which is very nice, comboing with the Brugit. The Loom boss is also very fast. It's got fly because it's jumping around with Squig. I would say that this list, in terms of weaknesses, probably has the same weaknesses that we were talking about, right? It's a 7-man list. So you kill those 2 stabbers, and basically it goes down to a 5-man list, and your opponent has so much action economy over you, especially in the kind of things that we were seeing at the top, right? A bunch of really strong ranged attacks, or some fast, hard-hitting things that can go in there and knock out a couple of pieces real quick. Once you're in that kind of situation, no amount of power on your Tyrant is going to win the game for you.
I think it's brave to not play you messing on a Destruction Soup.
I agree.
Given you know what you're going to be facing, and that we had 2 objective missions, but you know, I mean,
don't think you needed the Thunderfist. I think I would put a brute boss in there instead. That's just me.
Loom boss is great though.
Loom boss is awesome. But again, you can see how the Unmade did real well, because Unmade into something like this, where everything is big smashy things, and it's like, oh well, I'm just going to walk up to you, and that Tyrant that's going to hit me. No, it's not. It's just going to sit there. It's just a chunk of wasted points. It's nice to see Gloomspite gets as a base for Destruction Soup top this kind of thing, because we see a lot of Iron Jaw Destruction Soup, and we see Cruel Boy Destruction Soup because their base guys are generally a bit better. But seeing Gits is still fun. They got the nets also, so I think that's pretty good. Right, so these are all of the lists that got 60 or more points, so effectively a top 19. You can read the list yourself. We're going to pick out a couple of interesting lists here that we think is super cool. But first up, Dimitrios, I want you to talk about your list here with FLM the Unknowable. Lots of chatter about FLM, how super weird and got a lot of abilities and can do a lot of things, but no one's managed to translate that into an actual proper list, I don't think.
Yeah, so after the last tournament, I had to switch it up, and I found a really good deal on the Underworld box with FLM. It was the Christmas TTS League that I thought let's make something fun. So I put FLM in and a bunch of Zinch demons, basically just to be annoying, you know, because you play against Zinch demons and they can probably not do much, but you kill them, and then suddenly there's 2 of them, and they're not affected by the resurrection rules because they're technically not resurrection, which is one of my favorite things. But I really enjoyed the shenanigans, and I spent a bit of time trying to find what to dress the main core with, because FLM, good shooting attack, has a blue fire, which is like a semi-decent way to do a couple of wounds if you need to, and the teleport, and technically a resurrection mechanic for bringing an abomination back. Really enjoyed all the matches in December, even if some really didn't go my way, because I really just enjoyed the movement shenanigans, at which point I started doing some testing to find what to kind of dress FLM with. I started with Jade Obelisk, which I thought was great thematically, but I found that they were too slow and they weren't tough enough. So I started playing around with the Slaves of Darkness, and it was I think it was Underrated Fighters, that it was one of the articles from
Overthinking
Warcry.
It was Overthinking Warcry. Yeah, it was an underrated fighter article, like fighters that people generally overlook because there are other way better fighters in there. But statistically speaking, they're actually pretty good.
And I think you've also mentioned the Aspiring Champion as a really good option before, so I don't need to be told 3 times. I grabbed a couple, added them in. 4424, toughness 6. 22 wounds.
They're basically Stormcast
points.
They're basically Stormcast.
They're basically Stormcast, but for less, to be honest. Even though they're the same amount as a Paladin, because they have moved forward, they technically shouldn't be at those points because they're not getting that bonus from the move 3. So 2 of them as leaders gives you a good bit of chaff clearing and some proper staying power. I tried a few different Chaos Warriors. I ended up with the Rune Shield because of exactly the same thing. 15 wounds, toughness 6, difficult to shift. The reaction has kept units in the map when they should have died. So being able to heal for 3 with their reaction is great. Suddenly you go up to 21 wounds on your kind of mid-range chaff, which is very good. And in the meantime, you have everyone else running around. And then the little beasties that Ephelim has, Apotrax flies, has a very interesting 1 attack, strength 4, 3/6, which I'm pretty sure someone can make something with. But I rarely use it because of the amazing ability to pull someone their full move towards him. It's not as good as the Bray Shaman because that one will pull you out of engagement. This one won't. And it only has a 6-inch range.
On the flip side, it is a full move and not a move up to the value of the ability.
Not only is it a double, but it gets extra value by the teleport. Spawn Maw has a great triple for +2 to attacks and strength and crits. He can take chunks out of things, which is, well, very thematic. Moves 5, is a beasto, can't pick up treasure, but 12 wounds is pretty decent. Has a bit of staying power. It'll last a round in combat, usually, if it's not fighting anything too hard. But also has range 2, so you don't have to properly get in. Flame Spooler, last of the bunch. He's only there to pick up treasure. He's the worst one. He's the one that when I was putting them together, I got jabbed really hard in the thumb, and I have disliked him since. But it's a cool model. The important thing about this warband and the most fun thing is the double for sudden warp portal, where any of them can pick another friendly fighter within 12, and that's all the Ephelim ones. So unfortunately, I can't teleport my aspiring champions.
Mm-hmm.
You make a note of whoever they're swapping with,
Right?
and you make a note of their position, and then you teleport within 3 of their original position, and the one that hasn't cast it is teleported back within 3. The very important thing is it's not visible, so you don't need to be able to see where you're teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
12 inches is a long way.
Yeah.
And the within 3 inches, which is not wholly within 3 inches as well, which is very helpful, gives you so much flexibility. It's incredible.
It makes it 15 inches, essentially.
If you have one specific model that you absolutely need to kill, you get someone like Flame Spooler nearby, and then you just teleport with Spawn Maw, do 2 attacks. Then teleport with Ephelim, do 2 attacks. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. Even in something like the Brutal Conquest, I have done 40 points on that by having Ephelim just go on vantage points, where you can teleport her or them, do your 2 attacks, and then get them on another vantage point, ready for the next round.
Yeah, so your opponent can't pin you down very easily.
Absolutely. Can't get pinned down, and your movement is sorted by the sudden warp portal, so you can always use your actions to attack. And when your profile is 2/5 with a blessed strength, 2/5, 3/6, and you're shooting at like 10 wound models, it's not difficult to get 1 or 2 around. It can get some proper damage in. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of staying power with the Slaves to Darkness. Very fun to play.
Yeah, there's something, right? People kind of looked at Ephelim and said, oh, this could be really cool. A lot of tricks going on, but like I said, haven't really translated that into a very successful competitive warband. But it looks like if you take the time and you kind of sit down and build what you're going to build, it is something that you can do well with.
Absolutely. The plan is that I continue with Ephelim until until we do well.
Until you win it.
Absolutely. I genuinely think that it was pilot mistakes from myself, but I do genuinely think that there was potential to do a lot better. So I am gonna give it another bash. Absolutely.
Nice. I'd like to see it. A couple of other things here. We got Adam, War Games on Toast. He came 15th. He was playing the Vulcan Flameseekers. The most interesting thing about this is that he brought a Medusa, which he said did very well for him. Medusa, it will kind of wreck face against any kind of chaff, but on top of that, it's got those disruption abilities. It's got the net. It's got those other things going for it. It's got the ability to boost its damage using Bathed in Blood. So very much along the lines of, here is my True Blood style of character, but one that can actually fight. So I thought that was a very interesting take from his part. He said that going forward, he'd be looking to give +1 base damage to the Medusa. It's got a lot of attacks anyway. So suddenly when it's going to a 4-4-4-5 damage profile, that's kind of wild. It's huge. You put an extra attack onto that thing on a double, and suddenly it is blending through even Stormcast super easily. It is expensive, so 275 points. You give it the boost, it will be 300 points, but I think it's well worth it for the utility that it brings to the game. Some other interesting lists here. We've got Aiden. Aiden was the other Sylvaneth player in there. He's actually the player that I ended up playing against. Colonel Hunters, Calthea, Spike Revenants, Shadestalker, and Tree Revenants. So very similar. We're taking the Colonel Hunters there to do damage. The Hunt Master was swapped out for Calthea Zandai to give extra bonus moves to kind of fill that problem that we were talking about. The Hunters only having movement 4, but on a decent triple, you can get them both to move again. So they're going to move 12 inches on one turn, which will enable them to get in, which I think is super cool.
Aiden was my first opponent and had this amazing moment of getting a quad on first round, grabbing a treasure, and then teleporting to the corner, which was like the right move, and absolutely did a masterclass of holding me back while I was trying to take at least one other treasure, even though obviously Calthea doesn't seem like the most thematic of allies. He had painted and like flocked Calthea to look very, very thematic.
He had like a woodland,
really nice.
Yeah, a woodland cloak Calthea had to make it seem like she
was full flock over the top. It was very nice. It was a great touch.
Chris Gathercole, 18th place. That's one box Beast Players right there. So he did real well to get 60 or more points in this. So yeah, good on you, Chris, for that one. I think that's testament to both his player skill and not the power, but the different kinds of abilities that Beast Players have that would lend them well to this kind of pack. What else have we got? What else? We've got a Mind Stealer in there, which is nice. Again, in the same kind of vein as the Bloodrack Medusa from Anthony in 12th place.
That one, the Mind Stealer is geoed with a Thaumaroid Crusher. And then just plate bearers to fill out the model count.
And Mind Stealer is good. It's strong enough to be able to go through chaff units. It's got toughness 5, which is great. It's got movement 8, which is great, and a whole bunch of wounds. So it's a little expensive. People usually take the Thaumaroid Crusher over it, but I like the idea of taking both of them because it gives you 2 solid melee threats, and one of them with a lot of utility. Famously, the Mind Stealer has its quad that allows it to just turn off a fighter. If it works, it's going to work real good. I managed to do that. The one time I took a Mind Stealer, I managed to turn off a Chimera for a turn. So I was very happy.
I mean, that'll do it.
That'll do it, exactly.
Also to mention Krister coming all the way from Norway.
Yes.
And Andy representing the Cunning Crew. Absolutely. Yes. Big fan of Shank and Torka and Manok, because I've played them in the past and I love them. And it's a very solid choice because it's playing into this kind of control theme, but also while having a clawback in there, some Gorgers or a Trogoth to bring it in.
We played round 1 and it was Gorgers versus Gorgers, and it was the clawback when you brug it up really can rip something apart. And
his clawback's better than yours, Charles.
Yeah, when it gets +3 attacks and suddenly it goes, 7 attacks. Wounding on 3s, 3-6 damage, big chunk of health goes. But again, if you somehow lose Gicket and Shank, suddenly you're down to a 5 model list. You lose that initiative.
Yeah. So I played against him in my last game, and it was very much okay. I'm going to pick off these guys, and I'm just going to kind of control the clawback, so we can't do all that much. And that was kind of the problem in that last game.
One thing to mention is Michael's list. Fantastic conversions, very well painted. His vampire is a converted Radukar the Wolf. The Vargoyle is a modified.
It's one of the chaos.
One of the chaos
unnamed
demons
from Forge World. Yeah, for Horus Heresy.
Very, very pretty, very well painted, and I mean, for Graveguard, what's not to love about Graveguard?
What's not to love? Exactly.
Yeah, they're just good.
They're just good. Yeah. So I mean, is there anything else? Anything else you guys want to point out? A lot of gorges here.
Well, one box gorges in 13th.
Yep, and 17th place again is one box gorges. So nice to see that they were doing pretty good.
That's very brave. That's a 5 model list.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both of them actually 13 and 17, and they still managed to do work, which is great. So I think that's it from these lists. You guys, like I said, can check these out. You can take a look at them. But yeah, that's the top 19, 60 or more points. Here, I've got the final standings for you lot to check out at home. This is everyone, how they did. It's got their factions, major wins, minor wins, total kill points, that kind of thing. So yeah, if you went to this event, you can see how you did. If not, or one of your buddies that went, you can see how they did also. We had the painting competition that happened. There were 3 favorite army votes that were chosen by us. I believe Dimitrios has taken some pictures of that, so I'm going to put a link to those in the description below, or I might share them in my community tab. We'll be able to see those. And then there was an additional judge's choice. The quality I find is always super high at Warhammer World anyway.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
People do it for a love of the hobby and a love of what they do. So yeah, I'm always happy to see what they've been up to at Warhammer World. And that's it. That's it from us for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting for you, getting to see exactly the kinds of lists that we had at Warhammer World, seeing the standings, a little bit about how we played our lists and how we think the other players did. I would like to give a big thank you to my guests here. Thank you very much, Charles and Dimitrios, for kind of joining me in this little quest for today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for you guys at home, as always, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know down in the comment section below what you think about the different lists that you've seen here today. If you went to the event, drop a comment down. Tell us your experience, if you enjoyed it. I know we did, and it's something that we very much enjoy going to, so we're going to go to more in the future. If you liked some of the lists, you have any comments on the lists, let us know. Or on the other side of things, if you have any other comments about the event, about the format, about the structure, drop us a comment and we'll have a good discussion about it. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Charles, if you want to say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Yep. And Dimitrios, you too.
Yeah. See you later.
Very good. Very good. As always, I've been Itan. This has been Off Meta Musings, and we will see you next time.